Good morning, afternoon, and good evening, everybody, depending on where you're coming from. I wanted today to start a conversation with Bob because I've been working with Bob since last year, and I've been meeting with him on a weekly basis, and he's been helping Matt and our team around this concept that we're going to talk to you about called the life-centered accountant. So early on in our conversations, Bob asked me what it was that that drove me to work hard in business, and I think many of us typically come up with some sort of answer that's related to, I do it for my family, I want to give my family financial stability. And whilst that's true, there's more to that, I think, than that growing a business. You know, growing a business is a great asset, can give your family security, but often actually it takes time away from our family, and we have to make significant sacrifices to work hard to build and grow a business. So when he dug a bit deeper, I explained that when I was growing up, my dad, who I was very close to, still I'm very close to, still here, thankfully. My dad is a plasterer, and he went into a plastering straight from school at 16, and he hated it. And he's 72 this year. He's still doing it, and he still hates it. So he spent a lifetime doing something that in his own words he despised, and he would hate me or my brother to ever go into it. So I grew up sort of very confused as to how somebody could spend all their life doing something that they hate. He was a happy guy, but between the hours of 9 to 5, it was just about finishing his job and getting home. And his approach to money was he'd arrive home with a pile of cash from his day's work, pass it to my mum, and then go and play his guitar, go and have a game of snooker, and not worry about it. And as I started to grow up, I started to see sort of some of that naivety towards money, and I think that's plays a big part in what drives me today, because I don't want myself or my team spending a day doing anything that they hate. It really riles me to think that our team would do anything for a prolonged period. Obviously, we have good days and bad, but to go into your work despising it and to cross that line over the steps and into the door at MAP, for anyone to not be enjoying it, pains me. And when I reflect back, that's why. There's a world of opportunity out there. If you don't enjoy running an accounts firm, or you don't enjoy working in an accountancy firm, then there's many other things that you can do, and there's no point going through life not enjoying it. So with my dad, it led my mum and dad to running out of money effectively in the end. My dad actually had a couple of injuries when he was sort of in his 60s. He had severed his wrist plastering because he fell on his trowel, and he ended up back at work before he should have done, months before he was actually allowed to from the doctor. But he had to do it to earn money, because they just spent anything that they earned. They took us on some lovely holidays, but I was always sort of half enjoying it and half frustrated because I knew that they couldn't really afford it, and my dad didn't take care and didn't respect money. And it got to the point where they had to sell the house. They had like a 25-year mortgage, 3 years left. My dad had built this big snooker room. He was obsessed with snooker, and so was I. He built a big snooker room at the bottom of the garden with his own hands. Proper fudged it because he was a plasterer. He wasn't a builder, but he worked it out. He did, he got a bit of help with the plumbing and the electrics, but he did the roof, tiling, everything himself. And they thought I was frustrated because I was going to lose the snooker room, but I was frustrated because my dad was going to lose his pride. Was my concern. He'd put his heart and soul into building that place. He'd literally buy a bunch of bricks every week, whatever he could afford, and do the next bit of building the snooker room until he got it completed. And I saw all that get taken away from him, and they'd be paying rent bills for the rest of their life because they couldn't afford to pay off the mortgage. So come to the realization only after I've had 8 years running MAP that's been a big driver for me. 1, I don't want to be careless with money, and 2, I want to enjoy what I do, and I want my team to enjoy what they do as well. So when I started working with Bob, we started to explore some of that a little bit more, and we started to talk about the different types of clients that we work with and what might be their driving factors. And it's to dig that a bit deeper. It's okay, you want to do it for your family, but what keeps you going through the dark days? What keeps you going when you've got to put in the late shifts and you've got to turn around a problem, etc. And then we started talking about those clients have different backgrounds, different needs, different beliefs. And then we have another challenge, which is our team has somehow got to have the skill to uncover that and to help to best support our clients. And whilst many of the people on here today are business owners, because you run an accounting firm, your team typically are not business owners, have never been business owners, and yet we're expected them to have empathy with business owners and to be able to best support them. And typically what happens is that those business owners keep getting sucked back into coming to you for help, coming to you for guidance. And that's a problem, because you can't scale a business if you're dealing with clients all the time and your clients can't get the best service if they're waiting for you to be available and to support them. And I believe that that's a big reason that accountancy firms struggle to scale, because ultimately we are people businesses. So through our work, Bob built this life-centered manifesto, and he's here today to have a conversation with me about what that means and where we think that you all can benefit from this way of thinking and from these models. What might come naturally to you might not come naturally to your team. So if we can give them a bit of a framework to work with, then we hope that can help to elevate them to deliver the best possible service that they can. Cloud accounting has been amazing. The last 20 years have been really exciting in terms of developing our systems and processes around doing the work. And that'll never be complete. But I think if I ask most people on this webinar, we're happy that at least it's on track and moving in the right direction. But what this was always about for me is elevating us to be able to have the best conversations and the most meaningful, purposeful conversations with our clients. So welcome, Bob. Can you tell us what you mean by this concept of the life-centered accountant?
Thank you, Paul. It means, the clue's in the name, but it means focusing on the client's life, what they want, what they don't want. But there's also the angle of focusing on, as you said, your life. You're the owner of the practice. What do you want? And inside the life-centered accountant, there is, I hope, more purpose and meaning to our work. There's a lot of compliance work to do. There's a lot of apps to understand. There's a lot of change going on, and at the moment, a lot of clients in a lot of pain, and a lot of those clients are reaching out to their accountants. So there's a lot of work to be done. And I don't know who you're referring to there. Turning up and doing that day's work is not always easy. And there's some late nights and early mornings. So life-centered accountancy is a focus on the client, putting the client first, putting their life, being really believing that you can change people's lives. You can change your own life and the life of the people that you work with as well. So for me, it aligns everybody's goals. The life-centered accountant is truly what I believe accountancy was always about. I remember I was saying to you that before computers, I can't remember. I can remember just being in practice, but I can't remember 10, 20 years prior to that. But I think it was more genuine relationships. I think there were less people per accountant because it just took so long to do. So you knew those people at a deeper level. So I use the word radical relationships, and the word radical is etymology is the root of something. So I think it's going right back to where we should be, and the cloud accounting and all the other apps that go around that, freeing up time and giving us some information so that we can have this truly meaningful relationship.
Yeah, it's a really good point that I think, if you don't get your strategy right, cloud accounting can have the opposite effect and alienate you more from your client rather than what it was sold to do, which is to bring you closer. We've had clients where they're only around the corner in Manchester and they'll say, well, we've not seen you for months. I'm like, really? I hadn't even realized that I've been working so hard on your account, but actually we don't need to be in your office. But there's a difference between needing to be in the office and wanting to be in the office to build a relationship. We don't need to be. And we probably don't need to be for the things that we used to do, which is bookkeeping. So let's find another excuse to go and spend time with them, which is this idea of actually having meaningful conversations.
Yeah, there's two business models, aren't there, really? I think you've got the work business model, the job business model of doing that work. And, there's a number of online accountancy firms In fact, the most successful, financially successful accountant that I'm aware of is Simon Dolan, that built SJD, and now we've got Dolan Accountancy. And, you know, that's really about, you know, IR35 and contractors and what have you. But, you know, you can, if you can become a life-centered accountant, even if you're doing that. And like you say, now with what we're doing, the Zoom call, is easier to connect with people. They don't have to drive an hour in traffic to have a conversation. You can do more, little often, much more engagement, much more interaction with clients.
Yeah. And what do we mean by meaningful conversation? So what would be some of the ways of beginning a meaningful conversation? So when you said before, the example of, you know, showing up each day, and putting the hard work in even when it's a bad day, that actually came from a client recently who I said, he was on a webinar with us yesterday, and he's built a very successful digital agency. And I was interviewing him, and I said, you know, what are some of your secrets? How have you been able to build it? He said, I haven't got any secrets. I haven't got anything to share with anyone. He said, all I do is come and show up every day. What I've not done, which I think you advised me to do, is to say, but what drives you to come and show up every day? Because you don't have to. You could go and work for somebody. So what sort of questions would I ask this client? He's called John, to transition to this question from this conversation from talking about, you know, here's your management accounts, here's your year-end accounts, here's your tax return, you know, and even talking about some of the planning of those things, which is a step up. But how would I go from that to actually let's get under the skin of what drives John and what he wants?
Well, there's two situations. There's onboarding the client. So that can be done through the positioning of the firm and the initial engagement, even sending out some questionnaires to the client before you meet them. I mean, if you're sending out info, can I see the last 3 years accounts? That's a very different thing to sending out, can you tell me, you know, the 30 top goals that you and your spouse, partner, significant other want to achieve. That sort of sets up the conversation with existing clients.
You've done that, sorry to interrupt, but 30 goals sounds a lot. Just talk us through that.
Yeah, well, that's a new one. So I beg, borrow and steal ideas, and that's one I stolen from a webinar that I listened to yesterday. And it is a lot of goals, and it's purposely meant to be a lot of goals, because it's quite easy to sort of come up with the first 5 and 10. You have to think a bit for the next 5 to 10. It's the last 5 and 10 goals that you really like. I don't think I can do it. I don't think I can get to 30 things I want to do. But if you just sit there and stay with it, you may uncover some things that you've forgotten about. And that's the purpose of asking 30 goals. It forces you to think, and you might go, oh Christ, when I was, you know, I wanted to own greyhounds. That's one of mine, by the way. I wanted to be a greyhound trainer. You know, whatever it is, you think, oh my God, I forgot about that. And it's allowing people to reconnect with, don't be too woo, but with their dreams. You know, what is it that the things that they want to do? Because we're only here once. Life's not a rehearsal, and you can, I believe you can pretty much do anything that you want to do with everything that we've got, with all the information available, with all the tech. There's no excuse for not knowing. So if you want to do something bad enough, I think you can.
Just going to share something, Bob, because I've got a little diagram ready that you showed me before, and we're starting to touch upon it now. So it's the idea of the value pyramid. So what you're talking about now, I think, is because people might be sitting here thinking, well, what's that got to do with what we do? What's the fact that Bob wants to train greyhounds got to do with giving value to a client? And there's this value pyramid that was really eye-opening for me in terms of all of the different sort of intangible ways, if you like, that you can add value.
No, I can't remember when I found this, but when I did find it, I knew that it was important, because for many years, through the development that I've done in the profession with AVN and Steve Pipe and other people, the idea of added value was something that I really bought into, and delivering more value. And I knew how to describe some of that, what that meant by value, but it's quite an esoteric word. So when I found this is research from Bain & Co. And there's a great article on Harvard Business Review that explains this a bit more. But what I've done here is I've circled what I think the life-centered accountant can do. And I could have other circles on here for what Xero does and what an accountant does, what cash flow forecasting does. So you can really deconstruct all the things that you do and be really specific with the value, the labels, the terminology. And what I believe that the life-centered accountant can do, having those intimate conversations, connecting people to the things that they want to do, and being there as someone to help them. I should have said that at the beginning. The life-centered accountant is to help people get the life that they want. It's there to help you identify the life what you want, get that life and keep it. That's really what the life-centered accountant is. And you're tapping into these life-changing and social impact elements. And you can't do that. You really can't do it with the majority of the work that we do. There's a lot of stuff that we can do, functional value, and then we can touch on some emotional value. But this life-changing social impact is where we can elevate our service to by going deeper. It's that you go deeper with a client, you'll go up. And this value pyramid is overlaid on Maslow's model of hierarchy of needs. So this is a human model. So it works with people. And for me, it just brings real clarity to what we do.
I should take an example then. So just pick one of those in the life-changing section, Bob, and just explain.
Yeah. So the first one I'm looking at is motivation. And imagine a client earning, I don't know, 30 grand a year, 40 grand a year. And they might want to have done some things with their kids. I don't know, Orlando or something, that's 10 grand. And that most, a lot of people on this seminar may have been there, but a lot of people don't go there. They might want to go skiing every year. It's usually experiences that people want. Some people want things like cars and watches, Rolexes and things. But what if you sit down and you do some number crunching, which is the beauty of the life-centered accounting, because everything can be worked out. And when it's worked out and chunked down, it becomes much more attainable. They can suddenly be going, oh my God, if I just did this, that, and the other, I can get that. I can give that. I can help that person with that. I can get those things. It becomes possible. And that's where the motivation comes. And one of the things that you've got, Paul, is your goal setter calculator, which works really well with once you've done the sort of cash flow forecast for the person, so they know the money that they want. You can then look at the business and go, well, you can actually work out how many clients you need with an average order, some assumptions around gross profit, net profit and tax. You can work out that you need 352 clients. You've got 258 at the moment.
Yeah. So you mentioned before, sort of went off on a trail then, we mentioned about onboarding clients, and you can position some questions at the start that are not just the functional questions that help to get the accounts done, but some of the aspirational questions and the softer questions to help the client to think. And I think what we're saying is that thinking alone is value. You help a client to think differently is value. So how do you do that then with an existing client? You're in a conversation, you're presenting the management accounts. How do you go from talking about the business finances to some of this life-centered stuff and getting to the bottom of what drives them and what they want?
Yeah. So what we've been discussing with MAP is this transition question. And it goes something like this. So now we've done, we've reviewed your management accounts, or we've done your tax, or we've completed the tax investigation, whatever the work is. We've got a bit of time left. I was wondering, would you mind if we sort of step back and I just asked you a couple of questions about the business? I've realized I've been working with you for 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, and there's a few things that I don't know. Just wondered if that'd be okay. So it's an example of a transition question.
So simple, but so beautiful and so effective. And there's just been a really good question asked in the Q&A, so don't apologize, John. It's a brilliant question about how you get individuals who are used to and in the routine of production and producing work and making sure the numbers are right, and protecting those numbers and be ready to answer the difficult questions about those numbers being challenged, to then having some of these more, as John described, emotional, dig deep in.
Yeah. They are emotional. They are intimate conversations, and the way to do that, although that language pattern I gave you, there's that phrase, those words, that sentence or two, and there's lots of different ways of asking that question. That's like the tactic. And what I would say I wouldn't do is I wouldn't go and start rushing and saying, this is how you do it. I'd take that one or even two steps back, and I think this is for firm leaders now, to reconnect themselves and reconnect their teams with why your accountancy practice exists. So that's why very early on in our conversation, Paul, I was asking around what, the core purpose of MAP. It ain't to do accounts, and it isn't to make profit. What's it about? And I think it's about connecting, with your dad's story and making sure that A, you don't live that life, B, none of your employees live that life, and C, none of your clients do. And I picked up from you a lot of energy and a lot of emotion around when you see people doing something they don't like. It seriously frustrates you. You're a cool, laid back guy, but that's what riles you up. It really what riles you up. So it's for the leaders on this webinar to go back to if they want to do this, if it resonates, and don't do it if it doesn't, because you need to be authentic. You need to believe this. But if you believe you are there to help clients get the life, or identify, get and keep the life that they want, using your financial skills, using your relationship and the knowledge that you have. If you believe that, then you've got to communicate that to your team, and hopefully they share your core purpose. Yeah. If they don't, then there may be a role in your practice for them which is non-client focused, a more production side of it. And the people that really engage with this and really get lit up by it, but they're the ones that maybe will step forward and engage with the client relationships.
Yeah, so we're fortunate at MAP that, we do have a team of people, as you've seen, that are up for it. They are very coachable. They're very open to these ideas and they want to do it, but it doesn't happen overnight, does it? We've been meeting every week, several weeks, to keep that theme and to keep that thought process in the head. Because as John says, for the next 7 days, they go back to accounts, emails, phone calls, and just trying to almost survive the onslaught of workload that comes into an accountancy firm, really. But accountants typically are very efficiency focused. And what's really jumped out to me with all of this, it's sort of a false economy to think I haven't got time to go and ask the questions to those clients, because actually you'll gain a lot of efficiencies by making sure that you then focus the work that you do for them and the way that you communicate with them in the most effective way based on the discussions that you've had. Does that make sense? So I think if you do it right, this actually saves time. It makes the client more engaged. It gives them more reason to provide the information that you're busting the balls for and chasing them up for, because it's all suddenly got meaning. Because you're reminding them, last time we spoke, you said this was important to you. Can I just check if that's still the case? Because you might have just caught them in the heat of the moment, really angry, had enough of business now, want to sell it. A month later, no, actually, I've turned a bit of a corner. It's a bit better now. So sometimes you can just capture in the heat of the moment. And so the other thing that I've identified as accountants and just human beings, I guess, we like to sort of provide solutions. And a lot of these questions, they don't provide solutions. They open the doorway for future conversations. It's a bit like today. We're not going to change anything in 40 minutes. We need to continue the conversation. But by asking those transition questions, you start the conversation, you note it down, you might bring it up again next time or in a few months' time, and you build upon. So we came up with this concept of the client Bible, didn't we? Mm-hmm. And having this Bible of sort of information that we hold on the client, like a CRM almost, but one that's actually useful. And you build the blocks on top based on the discussions you've had so far. So you might not solve anything. Giving value is not necessarily just solving a problem. It could be asking a good question, getting a business owner to think. And if they're engaging with you and coming back for more and to continue the conversation in the future, then that's a sign of value and that it's been successful.
Yeah, I mean, there's huge value in this. Just asking someone to list 30 goals is hugely valuable. Most people, when you ask them what they want, they don't know what they want, but they know what they don't want. So just getting people to take some time for themselves, facilitating their thinking, to get some clarity is hugely valuable. I also think, Paul, it might be worth jumping back on that transition question, because the transition question is all well and good. So look, we've just signed off your accounts. We've got a little bit of time left. I've been realizing I've been working with you for 3, 4, 5 years. There's a couple of things I don't know. Would it be okay if we just take a step back, ask a couple of quick questions about the business? Would that be okay? The answer is yes. No one's going to say no, because they'll talk about their business. They love it. That's when you can then ask those other questions, which is, so you set up in business 10 years ago. What was the plan? Why did you set up? Were you thinking of selling at any time? And where you are today compared to where you thought you were going to be 10 years ago, are you on track, or are you a bit behind, or is it going better than you thought? So it's
none of that requires technical expertise either.
No. What it requires is, I mean, you can learn those words and you can learn those questions, but much better is just to connect with your genuine care and level of interest in somebody. Because when you have that, the words will come. We've got the words inside. There's not one word I've said today that nobody knows. I may have said them in a different order at a different time, theoretically in a conversation, but everyone knows those words. So you can learn the words and that will help, but it's much better to connect with, if you attend that meeting thinking your objective is to get those accounts signed off, find out what the legal and professional fees were, then that's what the purpose of the meeting is. If every meeting is towards helping someone identify, get and keep the life that they want without fear of running out of money, then that's how you go into the day. That's how you go into every meeting, any telephone, and that's how you reflect on conversations as well.
Yeah. So it's also about training the muscle, isn't it? Because even if people care, even if they're great people, they're used to, we have some staff where they were doing like 300 sets a year in accounts every year. So it just becomes ingrained in them to just get into that robotic process and go through it. And it's not a reflection of them as a person, it's a reflection of their experiences. So we want them to gain new experiences. And we've had times with our team where it's like, right, try this IDEO transition questions next week. How did you get on? Oh, I forgot to do it. No worries, that's fine. Right, what meeting you got to come next to this? All right, well, how about asking this kind of question? Just give it a go and see how it feels, and come back next week. Yeah, I did it. Felt a bit weird. Okay, no worries. Why did it feel weird? I think the client was just a bit taken aback. Okay, did you read off a script, or did it come naturally? I just sort of read off a script. Okay, well, just try and do it. What words that can't come to your mouth next time, and see how it goes. And so it's just trying to it takes time, doesn't it, to develop a habit. But when they have that breakthrough where the client goes, oh, good question, it's sort of, they'll never look back then, they're off.
There's two things there. Muscle memory, yeah. So I would recommend, if anyone wants to do this, practice in a safe place. So practice with each other. All right, that role play. I mean, I've done loads of role plays in my life, and it does help. It does help. Just, it's like learning a language. You don't just listen and read books. The teacher forces you to say those words even though you can't say them. And the reason is, when it comes out of your mouth, it goes in your head. It ingrains into the neurons in your brain. It's a biological thing. So sitting here listening to me, thinking about it is great, but do it. Just practice it, even if it's in the mirror, if you don't want to do it with anybody else.
Yeah.
There was something else, I can't remember what it was. We'll come back to that.
How do you does this work for all types of clients? And if not, which clients does it work for?
So I would have said yes until you questioned me back on that the other day. So I would now say it works for 98% of clients. And where I get that number from is, there's a book called Built to Sell, and an excellent book, but behind it, but behind it there is a huge amount of research that the author did into business owners, the psychographics of business owners, and he put them into 3 buckets. So you've got the craftsperson, the freedom fighter, and the mountain climber. And the mountain climber is will refer to themselves as the CEO. Typically, they will raise money and they will be looking to build and exit value. That's sort of their driver. And that's the sort of person that perhaps may not engage with, they might do, but they may not. They're less likely to engage with the life-centered accountant type of thing, because they're doing it for a bigger reason, and they're going to make so much money, it doesn't matter. So, but they're only 2% of the market according to that research. The craftsperson is typically the person that will self-identify as the technician, as the worker in the business. So they will refer to themselves as a copywriter or a designer, maybe typically self-employed or a one-person company, usually unwilling or not really, up for employing people. That's 76% or so, I think, of business owners. So the majority of our clients that we work with. And then you've got the freedom fighter, which is 20, what's that?
22, 76.
Yeah, something like that. And then you got the freedom fighter. So, and the freedom fighter wants freedom for something, maybe financial freedom, maybe the time freedom. They don't want to necessarily work all day, every day.
Yeah.
So it's just understanding the psychographics, really, not whether they are a limited company or a sole trader, but the psychographics. And you can pick up a lot just by looking at their LinkedIn profile, looking at their website and listening.
Yeah. Yeah. Steve Jobs doesn't want a life-centered accountant, does he?
No, I don't think he'd be interested.
He doesn't want to know how to spend less time on his business. He wants to grow an empire.
Yeah.
But the majority of businesses that we work with, the business and the life are the business and the personal life are sort of a compromise of each other, and it's helping, just helping them to understand and take breath of what that should look like for them is massive value. But I always say that for accountants, we've got this unfair competitive advantage over other business advisors, business consultants, management consultants, because we are so close to the data. So when we have that conversation as to what to need to look at, right, therefore, what does the business need to look at, right, let's start looking at the data, let's start looking at the patterns, let's start looking at the management information, the forecast, and see what it's telling us now. And then how we can start to make plans based on what you want versus what we're seeing that the business is giving you right now. And they don't have that. Consultants don't have that. They don't have access to all that data. So if we can develop this skill, we're in an incredibly strong and exciting position.
And that's why accountants, one comment I mentioned to you just come to my mind. You brought up business consultants. The reason why business coaches exist and business consultants exist, in my opinion, is because accountants haven't done enough. And if we truly did this, if we truly did it, we wouldn't need business owners wouldn't need business coaches, because we'd be that coach. And we've got more capability with numbers, just natural, let alone trained. And we are close, and our culture as a profession is, for me, hasn't been tainted by sales. It's not a sales culture, it's a serve culture. So I think our engagements and interactions with clients can be more honest.
Yeah. And how do you engage clients with advisory services from the life-centered accountant then? Because I think what we're saying is that this is not advisory, or not a replacement for advisory. This is taking a step back from advisory, isn't it?
Yeah.
But now that we've, given some context to what life-centered accountant is, how do you then use that as a platform into advisory?
Well, first of all, I wouldn't do any advice to anybody without understanding their life and money. So that's a position, that's a mindset, that's a belief that that I would encourage a life-centered accountant to have. We are never going to give you any advice unless we understand you and your money. So, when I was back in practice, questions around, you're a sole trader, how much you earning, how much do you take out, how much do you need to live on? That would tell me whether they should be, incorporated or not. So I was there. I was very, very close to the life-centered accountant, but I wasn't asking, well, why do you need to take that much out? What do you do with it? Now, obviously, you need to set that up in the marketing and in the engagement to get permission to have those conversations. But that's the value of challenging people, getting people to think. So, sorry, what was the question, Paul? I've gone on there.
How does the concept of life-centered accountant engage with the advice?
So once I know their life, and I know their money, I can then, with them, look at their business performance and go, well, you're on track. You don't need any business advice. Everything's looking good. I can look at their business with them and go, do you know what, your business is actually bigger than it needs to be. You could downsize, get rid of some of these issues that you've been telling me about, and live the life that you want with the money, no problems. So my business advice might be downsizing. There's a lot of people, and I was looking up before this, the World Economic Forum reckons, I think there's 400 trillion pension deficit. There's a lot of people that when you understand their life and you understand their money, there's a gap. And that's the opportunity. And the opportunity is to have a look at their business and go, well, based on how your business is operating and what you can afford to take out, there's a gap, there's a problem. And if you were to change a few things, so here is a little calculation that we've done, you'd fill that gap. You would, provided you don't take the money and spend it all, you're going to be okay. So that's, for me, the frame of then business advisory, because there's purpose, there's context, and there's meaning. Because it's not just about getting the 1, 2, 3, 5, 10,000 pound or whatever it is you're charging for the business advice. It's the 200, 300 hours and the 10, 20, 50,000, 100,000 that the business owner has got to spend to execute that business advice.
Yeah. And then when it comes to business advisory, we sort of had a little bit of I had a bit of a breakthrough in terms of those clients that have got it, have engaged and it's gone well, and those clients where it's sort of fallen apart a little bit. And when it's fallen apart, it's often been, it's us trying to get the clients to take action, to take advice, to do what they're going to say, to book the meeting with us. It's not the other way around. And when we sort of reflected with that group where it's gone really well and those where it's not gone so well, we reflected back on the vision and integrator principle that's in Traction, that many of you will have read. If you've not read it, Traction is a brilliant framework, the entrepreneurial operating system that's contained within Traction, which is a book by a guy called Gino Wickman. And he talks about this idea that most people who set up a business are either a visionary or an integrator, and very rarely both. And most are visionaries. And if you're trying to engage a visionary with anything really in isolation, and they've got to do work, it can be very hard, because the busy people full of ideas jumping from one thing to the next. But if you've got an integrator in the business, you can have the strategic level conversations with the visionary, knowing that when you need pieces of data, or you need something implemented in the system, you need a process to change, you can work with the integrator on some of that stuff. All right.
Yeah. So the link to the life-centered accountant and the visionary and integrator is that when you start having these conversations with the visionary, with the founder, and you do, I use a little presentation called the bucket presentation, and from that a cash flow forecast. Both of those things allows the client to step back from their business, to disassociate from the business. Many people think, they self-identify as the business. So when they take a step back and they see on the drawing that I do, their pension pot, their house, their investment property, their ISAs, their business, they start to see their business as a financial instrument. They put time, effort, and money into the business, and they should get income and capital back. But they see it less as them and more of something else that's not them. They're detached. And that's when you can then start to have conversations about what role do you play in that business. And you can introduce, if they haven't heard of Traction, it's a book that you can recommend that they read, seminars you can do on it, or you can just provide, this is something that many of my other businesses have thought about, that they are the visionary and they need a number two, a wing person to help them implement all the stuff, because they're not very good at getting things done. They're very good at thinking of ideas. So in terms of moving business advice, I totally agree that it's very, very difficult to move a business forward if you've just got a visionary, because they're going to come up with all the plans and never do anything. And by the time you see them again, they've got new ideas. So having the Traction framework of living a 90-day world and breaking every quarter, not just doing the budget every quarter, but setting the goals for the next 90 days, having weekly meetings, and having this integrator responsible for driving through the strategy, That's all made easier, and you get to that conversation, like you say, by taking one step back, looking at the business as something that's not you, that you can leverage.
Yeah. In GoProposal, Bob, we have the gloss methodology, which you are familiar with, and a lot of people here have really resonated with that. How do you see that the stuff that we're talking about now works in conjunction with the gloss method?
Yeah, so I think there's a lovely match between the two. And when I found, no, I didn't, when I come across it, I immediately resonated with it. So just double check the gloss is the goal, the location, the obstacles, the speed, and the services. Yeah. So with James's permission, I'm going to add another O in. I'll come on to that one in a minute. But the goal is really the goal of the person, the life that they want to live. That's really the ultimate goal. What is it that you want to do while you're on this planet? And what are the things that you don't want to have to do as well? So for me, that's the goal. So it's the personal goal first, and understanding the location, which isn't today where you are today. The location is, once you forecast forward somebody's life number, as I call it, the money in, the money out, the pension coming in, the business being sold, what does that look like? What does that location, their life location, look like? Are they on track? We were talking about how you categorize clients. You've got people with too much money, not enough money, or just about the right amount of money. So what's their goals, their location? And then the O that I would put in there is, what's the opportunity for the business to support that life, that goal? That's where your goal setting calculator comes in. And then I would drop back into the obstacles, what's in your way, and what can we help remove? And that then comes into the business advisory, the business coaching, comes into strategic partnerships, capitalize, and all the other things that accountants are doing. How fast you want to do it is, do you want us to start working with you? We can be your part-time integrator. We can really move this forward quickly with you. And then that comes into your service plan. So I think the gloss method is a lovely framework that the life-centered accountant can sit in. So the gloss method, I would say, that's the language for the accounting profession. The life-centered accountant is the language for the client.
And then the next question is, how does this interact with what the work of like a personal financial advisor or personal financial planner then? Because I think what you're saying is that you could look at the gloss, you look at the gloss from a personal situation first and foremost, don't you? And then the opportunity is, what's the opportunity for the business to be able to deliver what you've just said you want to deliver in your goals and in your location. So it starts to feel this a lot like the conversations that typically, historically, financial advisors would have, good financial planners, not just financial advisors who sell products, but good financial planners would have with their clients, removing them from thinking about the business for a while and thinking about what they want to get out of life with time, money, etc. So where do you draw the line between what we do as accountants and what a financial planner would do?
Well, like you say, the good ones, I would say even the world class financial planners are already having these conversations. This is where that profession is moving. For me, though, I think it should be the accountant having it. I mean, the model is, there's three hats to the conversation or to the work. Hat one is the life, and anyone can have that conversation. Hat two is money, and accountants and financial advisors can have what's coming in and what's going out. And hat three is advisory. Now, that for us, that might be business advisory or app advisory, or something connected to accountancy. For a financial planner, for them, it's the ISA, the pension, the mortgage, the life insurance, their products. So there is regulated work that we shouldn't go into unless we're regulated to do it. But there's a lot of work that we can go into. What I would say about this line, I mean, everything's being blurred now. Banks are being blurred with accounting systems, with counting up. So it's for us to define what the accounting profession is. We can do what we want with it. And there's nothing to stop us doing this. The Institute of Chartered Accountants announced a number of years ago that they want their members to do this. The label that they use is the personal finance director. And on the Institute's website, there's a list of like what's regulated and what's not regulated. The value in this work is the conversation, not the recommendation of a product.
Oh, yeah. The clients sort of get there, don't they, with the right facilitated conversation as to what it is that they need anyway. So I'm conscious of time and I want to get on to people's questions. If anyone else has got any questions, please pop them in the Q&A. We're going to be on to those in just a couple of minutes, and we're going to answer every question that you put in there. We'll stay as long as we need to, but we'll try and move at a reasonable amount of speed to be respective of you getting out in the sunshine. So just to finish up, Bob, how do people learn more about and get involved in this concept of life-centered accountants? Okay, so I've got the ball rolling. So I've set up a website called lifecenteredaccountants.com, and there's like a manifesto on there. It's a real quick read. So go there if this is of interest. That's the first thing to do, to express interest. It doesn't cost anything to sign up. There's no credit cards to go in. We should have said at the beginning, this is there's no pitch at the end. Well, there is a pitch because I really am keen for this movement to develop. So there's no paid pitch. There's no paid pitch, correct. And what that's going to do is going to give you the right to use, just by signing up and making that commitment, will give you the right to use that badge, the life-centered accountant badge, which you've got on your website, Paul. Yeah. And that's the start of identifying, self-identifying as, well, your intent. That's an intention. And there's going to be no tests and exams to pass, right? This is you know whether it's right to do with the feeling that you get inside you, whether you're committed to it or not. That's the test. To support you, Paul and I, if there isn't enough interest, we'll have other conversations. And I can go into more detail about how to do it. I've also developed some software that I've used, and anyone on this webinar, I'm happy for you to use that software at no cost for a year with up to 50 clients. You've got a couple of weeks off for Christmas, so you can do one client a week. That's going to give you enough time to play with this. So you've got 50 clients to use it with, no charge. I think we're thinking about setting up a Facebook group so we can have specific conversations about this. Yeah. Yeah, so that's sort of that's there's some ideas. Someone signed up already. So what we'd be interested in, guys, is whether genuinely, and no hard feelings, whether this conversation's been useful today, because Bob and myself are very happy to invest our time for free to continue these conversations. There's only so much we can cover in an hour, and there's lots of sort of doors that we've opened today that we'd like to explore a little bit further, and keep everyone in this mindset of how to have these conversations and how to have your team have these conversations, and it be a regular sort of theme throughout your business. So if it's been useful, and please don't say if you don't mean it, you just want to sit on the fence, that's fine. But if it has been useful, pop in the chat, let the GoProposal team know, because we're thinking about having, I'll come back to that in a second, John. That's a good question about the software. I was going to ask Bob about that. But if they've been useful, me and Bob are just going to continue to have like a periodic conversation like this, where others can listen into. So Bob can't, unfortunately, meet 200 accountants on here today, 200 firms every week, but we could have a periodic conversation where you're all listening in. So if that's of interest, just let us know. And I suppose we'll get that gauge from how many of you sign up to the manifesto anyway. And if there's enough for me and Bob to commit our time, then we will absolutely do that and enjoy doing that. I was going to ask you, Bob, and John's just reminded me, could you just briefly explain what the software does that you're looking to give away for free for a year? Yeah, so there's two sort of sides to the software. There's a new area that we put in at the end of last year called stories. And so one of the stories is the wheel of life. So you can just set a client up, click a button, you get a link, you send that to the client, and they will be able to create a wheel of life. If anyone hasn't seen the wheel of life, it's a circle,
with some spokes, and in the middle is a 0 and at the end is a 10, and each spoke is a part of their life. So you could do that before a meeting. You could do that before a new client meeting, and it just gives you and the client a visual representation of their sort of their life, I suppose. And there's two parts to the wheel of life that we put in there. One is their priorities, and one is their relationships. So that's just one of the stories in there. There's something I call a step back questionnaire, and again, you can send that out. And like you said, Paul, about CRM, I used to work for a CRM company that specialized in accountants, and a lot of CRM is about activity. Who have we called? Who do we need to call? What's our pipeline looking like? So it's activity based, and this is content based. This is the information that you need to know on your client. So that's one area. That's really simple stories. The other side is a little cash flow forecast, so that you just put inflows and outflows depending on the person's age and when those flows stop and when they start. So as they move through the various transitions in their life, you just put them in, money out. It's dead easy to use, and you click a tab at the top called results, and you'll see a line, and the line goes up as their wealth builds, and it goes down as they draw down on that wealth.
Yeah,
and that helps you calculate their number. How much money do they need to live the life that they want without fear of running out of money?
Yeah, so I'll talk about income from dividends, income from salary, income from property, household expenses, one-off holidays and monthly stuff. It'll talk about we're going to sell the business in 5 years for 1.7 million. And there's going to be some tax on that. Therefore, the income drops at that point, but we've got a big capital gain that starts to erode over time, money in a pension. So it basically does, as you rightly said before, the work is designed to do the work of a financial planner that's not regulated.
That's a good way of putting it. Very good way of putting it. Yeah. And let me be clear what this is not. This is not a financial planning tool. This is a conversation tool. And it's not meant to work out to the penny, because you can't, because you never know what's going to happen, as the last year's just showed us. It's just a conversation. It gives you a rough idea of the direction, a pretty accurate rough idea, to let them know what bucket are they? Have they got too much money so that they need to think about expenditure and giving plans? Are they just right, so they don't need to risk it? They need to de-risk and protect, or do they not have enough? And if they don't have enough, what would you do with someone that you truly care about that's got a problem?
Yeah.
You want them to know that they've got a problem, they admit that they've got a problem, and help them solve it.
Yeah. Great. Right. Let's jump into questions. We're going to try and be punchy, Bob, if that's okay, so that we can get through them all. Question number 1. Do you share the value pyramid with clients? Is it just a tool to keep you focused on the right things?
I've never shared. I have shared it with clients when I do business advice, because many clients don't know the value that they deliver.
Yeah. I personally, Fancha, feel that that's something that you keep behind the scenes. I've been saying to Bob since we started working together, I would love our clients in 6 months to start saying, wow, MAP have really stepped up. I can't put my finger on it. I can't identify what it is, but for some reason it just feels better. So I think there's some things that you just sort of keep in the background. And it's that idea of, over delivering, above expectation, because you've come up with really good ways of having conversations. But all your clients see is just you getting better. John, I think I've answered your question. Please let me know if you don't think I have. Paul, how do you do this for smaller clients? I think we dealt with that when we talked about how you deal with craftsmen versus freedom fighters.
I can talk about Sarah, because that question I think is a really big one, because I think there will be a lot of people here saying, yeah, but my clients won't pay for it.
Yeah.
And the answer to that question is no, they don't in the first year. So just do it for them in the first year. Okay, do it. Give them the experience. They won't know what this is. Don't say, I'm going to be a life-centered accountant, or I'm going to do a cash flow forecast. Just do it, right? Just do it, and they will be blown away by it. They were just engaged. So if I just quickly tell you about Sarah, a sole trader designer that was banging out logos for people, being abused by big clients, earning £20 an hour or £25 an hour. And I was encouraging her to specialize so that she could get her rate up. She ended up illustrating children's books, and she's gone on a journey with me. And part of that was triggered by me doing her life number with her. Before we even finished the work, she'd moved house. She's counselled Sky. She moved house to save money on traveling. She moved house to get a spare room where her and her husband could play music together because that's their passion in life. I couldn't believe it. I could not believe it. I hadn't even finished the calculation with her. I would got half the information. The answers were there for her. She knew that things that she was doing was wrong, and she started to change them immediately. She's now VAT registered. She's got a limited company. She's writing books that might appear on the BBC. So, you know, talk about life transforming from a simple conversation.
How did you make that commercial for you, Bob? Because you've given your time away for free initially.
Yeah, you do. Yeah. So, I mean, we charge, my wife and I just do a few clients to keep our hand in. We charge a lot more than anyone else is probably charging for a sole trader on a monthly fee. So just wrap it in. The amount of time, by the way, the amount of time to do this doesn't take very long, because you want to make this the client's plan, not yours. So you don't have to sit there doing all the number crunching. Get them to do the work.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, very, very important. This is about coaching and facilitating, isn't it? And getting them to put the numbers in to save you time and to get them to take ownership of it. Yeah. So yeah, a couple of people are saying, Bob, about how do you avoid scope creep if you start giving things away for free?
I think that comes down to defining clearly what you're doing, and then making sure that you're doing the things that you said you're doing and not doing the things that you haven't said you're going to do. So with the life-centered accountant work, I think there's sort of three ways of working with the client. One, I suppose, is very similar to zero. You can give them the system and let them do their own bookkeeping, and you charge for training. And it's, trust me, my software is a lot simpler than zero. It's a lot easier to train somebody. Use videos to do that, to support it. So you can empower somebody. You can work with somebody, or you can do it for them. And maybe clients that have got too much money and they know they've got too much money, they're happy to spend a couple of grand with you, 1,500 quid. It doesn't take a long time to do.
Yeah, I think, yeah. So what we're saying is starting the conversation is not something that you can be charging for, because it's only by having the conversation that the client wants more. When they want more, you can provide them with a fee proposal to do more.
Yeah.
But also a lot of what you're doing is getting them to do the heavy lifting. You're doing the coaching and the facilitating. The way that I see it in Matt's world, you know, we have more than a third of our clients that we deliver monthly management accounts for, and we have a monthly conversation. We're only as good as the words that come out of our mouths. So we might have clients where they're paying us £2,000-3,000 a month, but they only get one proper conversation a month, because the 2-3 grand is paying for the payroll, the VAT return, the bookkeeping, the management accounts, the owned accounts, the tax returns, the P11Ds. But they kind of correlate that to being a 2 to 3 grand conversation. So if they get off that management accounts call and feel underwhelmed, like, oh, I've not really learned anything, great, I've got my numbers, but I don't really know what to do with it. I don't know what action to take, and I've not learned anything new about my business. Then even though that might have taken you a shed load of time to produce those management accounts, maybe made a loss on producing them, you've got this, you've got this problem where you feel like you've overserviced and the client's not getting enough value. And that's because we're only as good as the conversation. So for me, it's about bringing this conversation up, bringing these questions up, this quality of conversation in the conversations you're already having. And rather than it just be, are you okay to sign your accounts? It's, you know, as you said, the transition question, by the way, I've not asked you for a while, what your goals are, why you set up business, etc.
Yeah. And now more than ever, because of this pandemic, that question can be asked. You know, looks like we're going to be getting out of this, touch wood, with the vaccine.
Yeah.
Lots of people have been impacted this, and I've had time to think and reflect. I was just wondering, have you thought about, you know, you and your business and what your plans are? Has this got you thinking? And that's just, I mean, there's loads of accountants going to ask that question anyway. Really good ones. There's going to be loads of good financial advisors that are going to be doing that. This just gives it structure. Gareth
asked, would you get them to do the list of 30 goals in the meeting, or is that like homework for the client?
Yeah, I do homework, and where there's two people, husband and wife, partners, do that separately, and send them into you separately and reveal them in front of each other. And the reason for that is that increases the likelihood of a really healthy conversation. In many partnerships, in many relationships, there can be a dominant partner. So it gives them space to think.
Yeah. This is a great question, Gillian. If a business only has a visionary, do we become the integrator?
that is the massive opportunity for you. Yeah. Yeah. And the integrator, by the way, is somebody that's highly organized,
Yeah.
you know, good at project management. I think there's a lot of accountants that would tick that box.
Yeah, it's a big fee, that though. You know, you're taking on a lot for the business there, aren't you? That's not something that you do the usual, you know, a few hours here and a few hours there. You're
Yeah,
gonna
no, you're talking thousands.
Yeah.
If somebody asked me to be their part-time integrator, and that's some work that I love doing, and I do it. It's usually very intense for a number of months, and then it eases off. So where you end up is you end up really growing the business with them, identifying their own integrator, either somebody in that business that ends up stepping up and being the integrator, or they recruit somebody in as the business grows.
Yeah.
And then you become what's called the implementer, not the integrator, which is another word as a coach. And you would do their quarterly away days. So that's where you end up. So it might be 15 grand in the first year, could be 20 grand. I charge someone 20 grand. There's a little LinkedIn article that I've written about it.
Yeah.
And that guy not only paid me the 20 grand, but he's invested in our software company.
Yeah. You're integrating with the wider business at that point as well. You're taking the heat off the visionary and working with, you know, several members of the team in the business, acting as that conduit in between. Would you offer this as a service on website, etc., or simply make it part of your model to offer these services and ask these questions to every client?
Yeah, I think the messaging should be on your website. I think there should be messaging around the intent and the purpose of your firm, of your brand, what your brand promise is, what your value proposition is. And believe you me, when you start digging into this and finding out what those words are, and on another one, I can share those with you. I'd need to think about them and write them down, but there's going to be at least half a dozen messages. But yeah, what I wouldn't do is necessarily go into too much detail. It's more high level.
Yeah. Craig asked about the article from ICAW, which I've actually written down for Morgan to include in the follow-up email. So I've got the value pyramid to include because somebody's asked for that. The personal finance director ICAW article, if you can dig that out for us, Bob, and the life-centered accountant website.
Yeah. Now the ICAW article, I looked for that before this event and I couldn't find it. They've moved it, but there are some press releases around it, and I think I sent a link to Morgan. So if she hasn't got that, I'll do some digging around.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's weird. It's weird that they've removed that.
If accountants come to the decision untainted by selling, how can we retrain this as we evolve? I trained with Big Six back in the 90s, where you would never market or advertise. The industry has changed hugely since then. Sorry,
could you ask that again for me?
I think it's saying that, you know, how back in the 90s, it was like, it was frowned upon for accountants to market the services. How can we, I guess it's therefore, how can we market this stuff to our clients as accountancy firms if it's not the usual compliance regulatory work we used to do?
I mean, the referrals is a great way of marketing, and when you do this work with clients, you will get referrals because people will enjoy this. I think the average referral rate for an accountant is like 1 in 26. So with every 26 clients, you get a referral every year. I picked that up from 20 years ago. It could be right, it could be wrong. Don't know, it just came to mind. Another way of looking at that is each client will refer you once every 26 years, right? Which isn't very good. So I think if you do something with impact and meaning, with emotion, and you move somebody, that, you know, they will remember that for a long time, and they will, that's remarkable. People will talk about that. The other thing is to, with marketing, it starts with your target market. And if you think about who are the people that have emotional drivers, and having had 2 girls myself, I know that when I had those girls and when I got married, my life changed, my life priorities changed, and I started to become more serious. There was a word you used really early on in this. I think it was immature. with money, and I became much more mature. I had to grow up and step up. So that, you know, thinking about those clients that are maybe in their 30s and 40s, young kids, those clients that are in their 50s and maybe thinking about exiting, those are the ones to start talking about. And any marketing now is experience marketing. So run events, run seminars, talking about how your business can give you the life that you want.
A lot of people asking about access to the software. Are we going to include that in the follow-up, or in
I think prior to the software, I would suggest doing a little bit about how to describe this to a client, and then the software will make a lot more sense. So that bucket presentation that I mentioned, I think we could have one session on the bucket presentation. That we might have half an hour, 45 minutes on that with some questions. The software is probably, you know, a half-hour session, 15 minutes, and it's dead easy to use. We might even just send a video out of that.
Yeah, but so how are people going to get to that point if they want to start looking at the software?
Well, I think register on the Life Centered Accountant website.
Okay.
And then we'll follow up with an event maybe next Thursday. I was looking at my diary before this. Thursday afternoon, we could do a session, and again we can record it. And anyone that comes on that session, we can give them access to the software.
Yeah. John is asking, there's a big place for accountability in this, but how is that effectively managed without becoming another big job? I'm sure none of us are twiddling our thumbs for loads of scope for extra jobs.
Is to help the client live the life that they want without fear of running out of money. That becomes the most important thing. The question is, how do we find time to do the other stuff? This service, if I was back in practice, this is what I would do first. This would be my service. Zero, accounts, tax, business advice would be add-ons. I would do this first. And once somebody was happy with this, I'd then take on the other work. That's just a mindset. It might be an unrealistic mindset depending on where somebody is. I think what you've got to do is a balance between, can you charge more, or can you find more time in the budget by using technology better? And, you know, we've got zero tax coming out this year. So the technology is becoming stronger and stronger. Xavier now rebranded to Dex Precision. You know, all that stuff is making our job quicker, not easier, but it's quicker to do it. So I'm assuming there's time being freed up.
Yeah, and it's making sure that you don't just fill that time with more of the same.
Yeah, you can fill it with more of the same, or you can fill it with something different.
Yeah, you might need to take a step back to move forward. You might need to hire new people, or you might need to, you know, stop just piling more and more clients in for a little while and think about how you do more for clients that you've got.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I've done that, John. Carolyn said, so she's just picked up on the question before about selling. So she said, you said that accountants come to this from a position of not being tainted by selling, but these days we do sell.
I don't see many accountants with a managed pipeline, with sales targets, with commissions. Not any of those things are bad, but they can be in the wrong culture. I think it was a general comment about the profession. We come from a place of serving, not by selling. We've never had to sell because clients have been forced to buy what we sell.
Yeah, we sell when we believe that something's right for that specific client, rather than sell because we've got sales targets, is what you're saying.
Yeah, and IFAs, they come from a place of commission. And, you know, could they go through a day, a week, a month, a year and not sell anything? No, we could. We could have life-centered accountant conversations with everybody and go, I've just worked out with you that you're just right. You've just got the right amount of money being made. Your lifestyle that you're living matches. There's nothing to do. I don't need to sell you any apps, no business advice. You don't need to invest in a bigger, different type of pension. You just don't need to do anything. What you just need to do is enjoy your life.
Yeah.
What you're doing tomorrow. You know, that's what we can do.
Will the recording include the Q&A, Andrew? Can you let me know on that, Morgan? I don't know if you want to pop that in the chat or a message to me, but will the recording include the Q&A? I think so, because I don't think anything confidential has been discussed on here today. I've not mentioned anyone's surname and no sensitive information, I don't believe. So unless anyone says otherwise, I don't see why we wouldn't include the Q&A on the recording, Andrew.
Just picking up on that question. So offering to do something new for somebody for free, some people will go, no, it's not for me. You know, they don't want to do it. So it may well be, although it's theoretically matches 98% of businesses, people, it might be that there's some that don't want to do it for whatever reason. The relationship with you might not be there at that moment. And then at the end, if you do it with somebody, there is a conversation as, do you want to do that again? Or should we just go back to doing the accounts and tax work for you? Or did you enjoy it? Would you like to do more of it? Because that's going to be a different price to not doing it.
Yeah. Great. Okay, Bob, I'm about out of steam now. We've been going for a long time. It's great that we've still got so many people on here, but we need to be respectful of Bob's time as well. It looks like we're going to be doing some sort of follow-up based on the feedback, which is great. We'll leave it there for today, and we'll pick up with you. We'll send an email out with things that we've discussed today and all the links, and then if there's anything else that we've missed from that, just reply to that email, let the GoProposal team know. Okay, thank you for everyone. Enjoy this one. Thank you.
Bye-bye.